to inspect each sleeping child, and returning, undressed in the dark. She removed underwear she had worn for 70 hours and stood there, shining. To the sleepy man in the bed it seemed a visitation, and he felt as people of old must have felt when greeted by an angel, adoring yet resentful at this flamboyant proof of a level above theirs. She spoke on the radio. She addressed local groups. In garages and supermarkets, he heard himself being pointed out as her husband. She helped organize meetings at which dapper young Negroes ridiculed and abused the applauding suburban audience. Richard marveled at Joan's public composure. Her shyness stayed with her, but it had become a kind of weapon, as if the doctrine of non-violence had given it point. Her voice, as she phoned evasive local real estate agents in the campaign for fair housing, grew curiously firm and rather obstinately melodious, a note her husband had not heard in her voice before. He grew jealous and irritable. He found himself insisting at parties on the constitutional case for states' rights, on the misfortunes of African independence, on the history of Reconstruction from the South's point of view, yet she had little trouble persuading him to march with her in Boston. He promised, though he could not quite grasp the object of the march. All mass movements, of masses or of ideas supposedly embodied in masses, felt unreal to him, whereas his wife, an Amherst professor's daughter, lived by abstractions. Her blood returned to her heart enriched by the passage through some capillarious good cause. He was struck and subtly wounded by the ardor with which she rewarded his promise. Under his hands her body felt baroque and her skin smooth as night. The march was in April. Richard awoke that morning with a fever. He had taken something foreign into himself and his body was making resistance. Joan offered to go alone, as if something fundamental to his dignity, to their marriage, were at stake. He refused the offer. The day, dawning cloudy, had been forecast as sunny, and he wore a summer suit that enclosed his hot skin in a slipping, weightless unreality. At a highway drugstore, they bought some pills designed to detonate inside him through a 12-hour period. They parked near her aunt's house in Lewisburg Square and took a taxi toward the headwaters of the march, a playground in Roxbury. The Irish driver's impassive back radiated disapproval. The cab was turned aside by a policeman. The Maples got out and walked down a broad, brown boulevard lined with barbershops, shoe repair nooks, pizzerias, and friendliness associations. On stoops and stairways, male Negroes loitered, blinking and muttering toward one another, as if a vast, decrepit conspiracy had assigned them their positions and then collapsed. Lovely architecture, Joan said, pointing toward a curving side street, a Neo-Georgian arc suspended in the large urban sadness. Though she pretended to know where she was, Richard doubted that they were going the right way. But then he saw ahead of them, scattered like the anomalous objects with which Dali punctuates his perspectives, receding black groups of white clergymen. In the distance, the hot lights of police cars wheeled within a twinkling mob. As they drew nearer, colored girls made into giantesses by bouffant hairdos materialized beside them. One wore cerise stretch pants and the golden sandals of a heavenly cupbearer, and held pressed against her ear a transistor radio tuned to WMX. On this thin stream of music they all together poured into a playground surrounded by a link fence. A loose crowd of thousands swarmed on the crushed grass. Bobbing placards advertised churches, brotherhoods, schools, towns. Popsicle vendors lent an unexpected touch of carnival. Suddenly at home, Richard bought a bag of peanuts and looked around, as if this were the playground of his childhood for friends. But it was Joan who found some. "My God," she said, "there's my old analyst." At the fringe of some Unitarians stood a plump, doughy man with the troubled squint of a baker who has looked into too many ovens. Joan turned to go the other way. "Don't suppress," Richard told her. "Let's go and be friendly and normal." "It's too embarrassing." "But it's been years since you went. You're cured." "You don't understand. You're never cured. You just stop going." "Okay, come this way. I think I see my Harvard section man in Plato to Dante." But even while arguing against it, she had been drifting them toward her psychiatrist, and now they were caught in the pull of his gaze. He scowled and came toward them flat-footedly. Richard had never met him, and shaking hands felt himself